the reason why people are so scared to have these conversations is because they don't know. They're trying to plan it out and figure out all of the scenarios, and you just can't.
There's so many programs out there about improving the workplace and workplace engagement and workplace communication. I haven't ever heard it phrased like play quite before, but there's the whole mantra, doing what you love, and all of that. So I want to delve into that a little bit more, but give us some background on you.
Yeah, sure. So when I was in third grade, I saw the movie Big with Tom Hanks. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that movie. And in that movie, he becomes a toy designer. He's basically playing with toys for a living. So I started writing toy companies.
The dream job for every kid.
I started writing toy companies in fifth grade. I started writing them every week on my word processor. I sometimes would get mail back because I didn't put enough postage on it. So then I would put more postage and I would send many copies. So I was doing spam before spam was a thing, right? And a lot of toy companies didn't even realize that I was a child writing these letters, these long letters. Well, anyway, eventually a toy company wrote me back sophomore year. That's how long I had been writing them, and told me to go into mechanical engineering. Went to Tufts University on the East Coast. Worked on, I think, one of the first versions of the Lego Mindstorm system, and then went to New York and started working for various toy companies, right? And when I got there, I hated it. Everything that I thought was supposed to be amazing about a toy company, it felt like they were selling microwaves. Like it didn't really matter what they were selling. Right. So I moved from New York to the Bay Area, worked for another toy company, Sega, a video game company, and was just constantly disappointed. So I had this quarter life crisis. I had no idea what I was going to do with my life next because that was the dream, right? And I remember hopping on Craigslist and I found a job as a Lego engineering instructor where I could teach kids engineering with Lego. And when I met the owner, I found that it was just him and 6 other nerdy guys that were just playing with Lego for a living. And I stuck with them and I helped grow their organization. And I started in 2004, and by like 2017, we had taught over 1 million kids in that time frame. We had grown one of the largest, if not the largest, Lego STEM education company in the country. We had partnered with Lego. And through all that, we had also then started to get the attention of a lot of Bay Area tech companies, the Facebooks, the Amazons, the Adobes, all that, right? Actually, Amazon's in Seattle, but we were doing stuff with them too. And they asked us, do you do team building events? And we were like, oh, yeah, sure. And we didn't. We were just making it up as we went along.
Just say yes.
Everything we did, the way in which we've expanded our business, like how we picked cities, was we just picked fun cities. We hired people that were fun. We were just playing the entire time, right? So, and the business grew, even though we weren't following all of the traditional rules. And while I was doing these team building events, a lot of these companies wanted to explore creativity, collaboration, communication, all the buzzwords you said earlier, but they didn't want to answer the harder questions, which were like, how do you deal with that toxic person at work? How do you create an inclusive workplace? How do you deal with uncertainty when you're like laying everyone off? How do you, or during these times, right? How do you play in that space? How do you deal with that inner critic that is preventing your staff from being creative and taking risks? How are you creating an environment so they feel like they are playful enough to come up with the outside of the box ideas that you claim you want to hear? Right. So I created Rediscover Your Play just to do that. And all of our workshops are play workshops where we actually put people in experiential the redundant word is experiences, where they play out how to have a hard conversation with someone. They play out what it would be like to deal with their inner critic. So they're actually acting stuff out so that when they leave the workshop, they can actually apply it at work.
And so you're talking about when you're talking about, I call them adult conversations. this podcast and what we talk about most about is becoming successful. I come from a very difficult background, and I've done hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue and bought and sold a dozen companies. And so I've got some insight into how to go from the street to where I am now. And so we talk about that all the time. And one of the things I've managed 10,000 employees plus over the last 20 years. And one of the things that I've noticed more than any, or probably as much as any, I should say, is that difficult conversation and the reluctance to have that difficult conversation.
Absolutely.
I call it, that's why as soon as you said it, I kind of keyed on that. I call them adult conversations. Yep. And there's no way, Billy, my producer sitting here, has heard this conversation before. That's your renter's not doing what it is that you want them to. It's called adult conversation time. Mm-hmm. Don't make up in your head what you think reality is. Don't, boy, this passive aggressiveness in us will just come out, and all of a sudden you'll make the problem 1,000 times worse than it is. And then when you finally go and deal with it, you go, well, why in the hell did I put myself through the last month of that hell? So when you're talking about play, you're talking about also skills that will help alleviate some of that stress that might drive down your enjoyment of work.
Absolutely. You practice those conversations. You practice in a safe environment. The reason why people are so scared to have these conversations is because they don't know. They're trying to plan it out and figure out all of the scenarios. And you just can't, right? You have no idea how people are going to react. But if you practice enough times, like anything, then you can go in with a little bit more confidence and be okay with whatever result comes at you.